So yeah, I will be doing a couple more hours of work. And then I might switch over to working on my ePoll server, doing some fun stuff. It's been a day filled with boring chores, but stuff that I have to get done. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and focus up here, get a couple more hours of work done, and then I'll switch over to writing my ePoll server. Cool. Yeah, I used to play Minecraft back in the day. It's getting kind of late here for me. I've been working on my taxes all day today. That's why I wanted to get on a stream just to hang out, but I also needed to focus on doing that. So it's been kind of a shitty day. But at least I got most of it done. I don't like the results, but at least most of it's done. Yeah, I told myself that I'd do some work on the ePol file server, but it's getting kind of late, and I don't really feel like I have the cognitive ability to dive into that. But maybe I'll boot it up just to refresh my neurons a little bit. 12 jobs? Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've never used LinkedIn my entire career. Very early on in my career, like LinkedIn was basically like starting when I was starting in my career. And very early on, they had a security incident where their database got leaked, and they didn't hash any of their passwords. They stored the passwords for all their users as plain text. And after that, I think it was around the time they were getting acquired by Microsoft that this happened. I don't know if it was before or after. I can't remember, but after that incident, I basically said, well, if you take that approach to security, I just don't want to have anything to do with you. So I've never been on LinkedIn, and I haven't really had much issue progressing in my career without it. But that's really impressive that you applied for 12 jobs. My advice, if you're looking for work, is to make contacts with people. Because when you try going through recruiters, or you try just filling in an application, if you don't have someone inside the company that you have at least tangential relationship with, like, it's going to be very difficult for you to get your foot in the door. That's been my experience. Usually what I do is I find companies that I'm really interested in working at, and then I'll find people that work there, and then I'll put myself in situations where I will run into them socially, so I can develop a relationship with them. And then when it comes time for me to apply for the job, I can use them as a referral. They can refer me into the hiring system there. And that has always worked for me. It's a little pro tip. And it's always in the employee's best interest to do that, because they get a referral bonus usually. It depends how aggressively the company is hiring, but I've seen referral bonuses up to like $10,000, which is, it'll motivate people. So if you find someone, even if you don't really know them that well, usually if they refer someone who they don't know well into the company, they still get a smaller bonus. Like maybe it's like $500 or something like that. But it's still motivation enough to where if you reach out to an employee that works there, you introduce yourself, you develop a relationship with them, even if it's online, they'll refer you into the company to get the bonus. What type of companies are you applying for? Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I mean, I have no fucking clue what it's like to get hired in Pakistan, so um, I imagine the time zone difference with the remote work makes it pretty difficult. You're probably better off with like European tech companies, I imagine. Is that true? Or I'm just Am I just making shit up? Because like I imagine a 12-hour time zone difference with the United States, that would be pretty brutal. Unless you're doing like an on-call thing where you're the nighttime rotation. Like if some companies they have 24-hour rotation for their services because they need to ensure uptime 24, so they'll do handoffs as the globe turns. They'll hand off the on-call rotation to another time zone. And so that might actually make sense. Yeah, some companies they do that. I know the company I work for recently did that, and they had a presence in India, not quite Pakistan, but I guess India. There's a lot of tech companies in India. It's been a while since I looked at that area of the world. I know a little bit about the geography, but not much. I had some friends that are from Goa, and then of course I had some Punjabi friends. But India is like a big country. So is Pakistan. Wasn't Pakistan part of India at one time? It was all one big country. American companies that source Asian people remote, yeah, outsource, yep. And I guess China is like the huge economy in the area, right? China and India. But like, how many time zones is that? Is there like a time zone map? So between the United States and Europe, I know it's 7 hours. Or at least last time I. Yeah, so I'm in -7 here. Europe is 0 to +1. Most of Europe's +1. So that's about an 8-hour difference, depending on daylight saving time. So Pakistan is 5. Looks like it's 5. What the hell is India here? What is India? Orange? I don't get what that is. Oh, areas in partial time zones. Okay. 5. So that's about a 4-hour time zone difference. That's not that bad. But I guess all the cool stuff is like happening in Asia, right? Like all the innovation and technology in that area. It's gonna be China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, South Korea, Japan. Like they're all high technology countries. Yeah. Have you ever considered leaving Pakistan? I don't know if that's in the cards for you. I know I've worked with a lot of people from India who have left the country to immigrate into the United States just for opportunity. But now that the United States, now with Trump in office, their immigration is like, uh, it's not as open as a country as it used to be. But I think that tech companies still have all their visas, like the H-1Bs and all that stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So would you relocate to Europe, or are you just talking about doing remote work? What? Well, 100K a year. I imagine that's sponsored by by the company, right? Like you're not paying that. I guess for you to be economically valuable to the company, it would have to be part of the compensation package, I guess. That's crazy. $100,000 a year. I did not know that. I remember hearing them talk about doing something like that, but I didn't realize that they started doing that. I had a few friends that I worked with that were here on H-1Bs, and then they eventually got their green cards. This is before Trump, before his first term, and then they became citizens recently. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know anything about Pakistan. I took a world history class when I was in college, and this is like multiple decades ago. So I really haven't really learned up about what's going on over there. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. Pakistan's a cybersecurity country. In innovation in cybersecurity. I think it's mostly Israel, right? Like they're the ones that are doing all the cybersecurity stuff now. They got all those hacking companies. Israel and North Korea, I hear a lot about. North Korea gets up to a lot of shenanigans with cryptocurrency and stuff. I remember I was working at this one company. It was a cloud computing company, and one of my coworkers, uh, he ended up committing. It was a public repository, an open source repository, and he ended up committing a what was it, a service account credential for the Google Cloud account that we were using to test the open source project. And immediately uh, all these IP addresses started like flooding the account, creating cryptocurrency miners, like VMs that had like GPUs attached to them so that they can mine cryptocurrency. I think the bill, because we caught it pretty quickly. I think the bill was like maybe about 40 grand in the amount of compute that they consumed. I doubt that they are actually able to mine anything off of that, but yeah, North Korea and Israel and Iran. I've never heard of 82,000. I've never heard of that. I worked with a few Israelis. The company I work for acquired an Israeli cryptography company, and I trained a few of the Israelis. They came out to the United States, and I worked with them for maybe a couple weeks. So I got to know them a little bit better. But yeah, it seems kind of crazy the stuff that they get up to. I kind of want to read some more of this C10K webpage and then maybe hop off here. So it's only 18 pages here. It's not insanely long. They evolve everything after initializing unit 82,000. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. There's like a bunch of hacking conventions that I've always wanted to attend. Let me see. Will I get hacked if I search for this? Israelis that come after you. That's number file. Or 8200. Intelligence Corps unit of the Israeli Defense Force, responsible for clandestine operations collecting SIGINT What's funny is SIGINT is a Unix signal. If you do man signals or signal, SIGINT. What is it? Where is it? SIGINT. Here it is. So when you hit Control C at the command line, it's signal interrupt, but then it gets repurposed for signal intelligence. Code decryption, counterintelligence, cyber warfare, military intelligence, surveillance. Military publications include reference units to 8200 as the central collection unit of the intelligence corps, and it's sometimes referred to as Israeli SIGINT National Unit. Yeah, I was gonna say they sound like the NSA. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read a little bit more of the C10K problem. So, it's time for the web service to handle 10,000 clients simultaneously. Don't you think? After all, the web is a big place now. I was thinking about it today. With 16 cores, I'm pretty sure I can spin up like more than 10,000 threads. How do I tell how? Yeah, let's go ahead and try it. Let's do like I got source. I got experiments. Jump experiments. Let's go in here. mkdir thread spawn. Let's do main.c. And I'm going to pound include pthread. Because I think at the time of like writing this, like it was difficult to get more than 10,000 threads like running. So we need a function, a void star. We'll just call this thread. It takes in an arg, which is a void star. And we're just gonna have this thing maybe like go into a forever loop and just sleep for 1 second. I think sleep's parameter is a let's see, man to sleep, man sleep. Pause is the syscall. Yeah, I think it's the number of seconds, right? Man 3 sleep. Yeah, seconds. So we're going to sleep for 1 second. I could pause, but kind of feel like sleeping would be a little bit more interesting. Because pause will put you to sleep until you get a signal, whereas sleep will automatically wake up. So in here, we're going to say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than num threads, plus I. And here we're going to say pthread create, and we need to create a new pthread, so we say pthread t, and then we pass in a reference to t, and then this thing can be null because we don't care about the adders. This will be our pointer to our thread, and the arg can be null. So these will be actually waking up, doing some work. We'll just do some math here. We'll just say int counter is equal to 0. It doesn't matter. This saying data races. Counter plus plus. We just wanted to do some instructions. We'll say here, it doesn't matter that this races. Who cares? Okay. So we do pthread create. And then we need to block the main thread, so I'll just pause the main thread after we create all our threads. Actually, you know what? I'll do a little printout here just to see what the counter state is. We'll do printf counter state %d counter. Let's include standard lib and standard IO. And then we need to define num threads. Pound define num. Oops. Num thread is, we'll do 1,000 initially. Check for the companies and people who came from that unit. I never asked what your specs are. I'm running this thing. It's called a framework desktop. This is the machine that I'm coding on that you can see on the stream. And I think it's the beefier one. If I cat out proc CPU info and grep for num, I think it's num. Or ID, sorry, it's ID. Core ID. Core ID. So I have 16 cores. Let's see here. Framework desktop. It was the DIY. Let's configure it. And how much RAM do I have? Let's do H top or B top here. How much RAM do I have? Oops, sorry, man top. Here it is, 128 gigs. So I got the 128 gig, this one here. So it's 16 cores. Why does it say 32 thread CPU? Oh, because it has hyperthreading. So it has 32 virtual cores. Up to 5.1 gigahertz, 128 gigabytes memory, 40 graphics cores. I don't even know what these things are. It's something that AMD does. I've never even heard of this. LPDDR. I heard double data rate, but LP double data rate 5x. Yeah, the reason why this is like packaged with the CPU is it's like soldered. It's like it's soldered onto the board. You can't remove it. And then the rest of this stuff is like not even like super important. I think I got one of these NVMEs as well. I've never owned their laptop. My laptop is a old MacBook, one of the original. I think it's an M1 Max chip that I'm running Omarchi on because I run this thing Asahi Linux. And they support device support. Here we go. Yeah, they support up to M2 right now. And I think they said that they're working on some of the newer chips. I was thinking about selling my MacBook and then buying a framework laptop. But I went online and I did a lot of research and watched a lot of reviews, and like basically they're modular, which is like the whole idea is that you can like remove components and replace components yourself. But like compared to Apple's hardware, they're not as good. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter. Apple has incredibly good hardware. The thing I don't like about Apple is that the software sucks. I hate Mac OS. I hate all of their shitty software. And when I found that Asahi allows you to run Arch Linux, like you could run, they have these like remixes where you could take Asahi and remix it for like Arch. I think it's called Asahi Alarm. Yeah, this thing here. So this allows you to run Arch Linux on your MacBook. That's cool. Yeah, I don't really use that many Linux distros. Like I've used Debian and Ubuntu. I consider those pretty much like very similar because they are. Ubuntu is like a derivative of Debian. So I'm familiar with Debian and Ubuntu just because Ubuntu is used on servers everywhere. Like pretty much all like technology companies that use Linux use Ubuntu on their server. And then there's things like, you know, server specific containerized operating systems like Amazon. They have this Bottle Rocket distro. I've used this at my previous job. It's pretty cool. Recently, I've used just for my own local testing. I don't think I've done this on stream before, but I was playing around with like virtualization, KVM, and QEMU for emulating other architectures to test. What was I testing? I don't remember what I was testing, but it's something. Yeah, it was on stream. But basically, I was testing out different distros and architectures. Because I wanted to test out different libcs, and there's one that uses it's called Void Linux. It uses or allows you to choose which libc you want. So you can see C library diversity. Void Linux supports both Musil and GNU libc. So usually like libc is like a layer on top of the operating system, and like your operating system only has one libc. But because it's Linux and because there's a lot of choice out there, there's alternative libcs, and one of the primary alternatives is this thing called Musil or Muscle, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it's an alternative libc to GNU libc. And so Void Linux actually allows you to choose which libc you want to use, so you're not tied to any specific one. Whereas a distro like Arch or even like a Ubuntu, like these traditional distributions, they're gonna kind of like lean heavily on GNU libc. There's one called BusyBox that I've used a lot for containers. Yeah, this one uses Musil as well. I wouldn't really call it a distribution though. What's the distribution that uses BusyBox? I forget the name of it. Alpine. So BusyBox is like all of your user space utilities implemented in a single binary. It's very minimal and it relies on libc, or relies on Musil for its libc. And then there's this thing called Alpine Linux. And so far, like in my recent like testing, this has been my favorite like minimal Linux because it's like super small, lightweight. A lot of people run it in production as a container operating system. So yeah, there's a lot of different varieties of Linux out there, which is great. My first Linux that I ever used was something called Slackware. This is actually how I learned a lot about Linux, is this thing called The Book. The Slackware book. Yeah, this one here. This is like back in the day. I used to hack on Slackware. And then I think you mentioned one recently that I need to look into more, which is I forget the name of it. But the one that's more security pen testing focused. I forget the name of it. Is it Kali? Yeah, Kali Linux. Yeah, I mean obviously I've heard of this before, but I've never used it myself. So that's a cool one. Amarchi, of course, Arch Linux. What's some others that I've been learning about recently? There's a few others that popped up recently, but I feel like I've only started getting back into Linux at the end of last year, beginning of this year. I took a pretty long break from Linux. Like I used to run Linux when I was younger because I was broke and I didn't have any money. I just had all these little tiny bits of hardware that I put together myself. Some of it I like got literally from a dumpster. I would go to these like recycling centers, and they would have computers kind of set aside for people to come and buy for like $1 or $2. And so I would go there and find computers that had parts that I needed, and then I would just buy them for like a couple dollars. And then I would take them home and I would disassemble them, grab the parts that I wanted, and like Frankenstein up a computer. And when you do that, like the best operating system for running on a computer like that is Linux. Like, I mean, I guess I did run Windows occasionally, but a lot of the stuff I did in that early part of my life was running Linux. And then I got into Windows as I was growing up because everyone was doing Windows. And then I switched over to Mac OS around 2008, 2009 for work, because a lot of the companies I was working for, they wanted me to run a Unix operating system, and they would not support Linux. So they wanted Unix for all their developers. So I started using Mac OS. And at the time, they were running Intel. So if you wanted a dual boot Linux, you could, but for the supported hardware that the company wanted, they wanted the Macintosh hardware. So I did that all the way up until recently. I've been running a lot of Apple hardware. I never considered myself an Apple person, though. It was kind of like a Faustian bargain. Like, you pay a lot for their hardware, but it's a really high quality product, and they solve a lot of the frustrations that you might run into with running a Linux distribution. Like Linux has a lot of like rough edges, things that you run into. Like even on the Amarchi, I run into like Hyperland crashing on me occasionally. The other day I came back to my machine and it just restarted for no reason. And stuff like that you don't really run into with the Mac. So I would say the Mac and Mac OS is very reliable, but they're able to do that because they have such high control over the operating system and all of the software they have high control over, and they have control of the hardware. Whereas Linux has to run on everything, and it doesn't know what you're going to throw at it. So the job that Linux is doing is such a harder job than what Mac OS does. Because Mac OS just has to support a handful of hard pieces of hardware, Anyways, yeah, Bottle Rocket's a cool thing. There's a lot of distros, but this is the machine that I'm on. And then I got this Arch Linux tile. They had a Arch Linux tile, so I got this one here. I've never used Arch. Why? It is so many memes about Arch. So I have a question. Why big companies always move forward with Mac? I think it's from like a simplicity, a security perspective. Like Windows is like a nightmare from a security an IT administration perspective. And Linux, I mean, frankly, it's just too hard and too diverse for companies to manage and secure. The other thing is like Mac OS is really happy to allow companies to install rootkits on their corporate machines. So, you know, when you're running on a Mac that your company has given you, I mean, I would say 9 times out of 10 it has like a fucking rootkit on it where they're monitoring every syscall that you make, and you know, they have full observability into everything that you do on those machines. Whereas if you're running Linux, I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, it's totally possible to do the same things. It's probably even easier to do them on Linux. But the problem is if you're running Linux, you're kind of opening up the gate to allow people to run their own versions of Linux. And when that happens, you lose control. But yeah, the Mac OS Apple hardware is very corporate friendly. We'll say that much. And they are good machines. I'm not gonna like downplay their capabilities. They're very good machines. The reason why I decided to do away with all of my Apple stuff, I mean, I have 3 Apple devices still, and I keep them just for testing. But the reason why I did away with most of my Apple stuff is because their operating system is such a pain in the ass to deal with. And they're assholes. Apple are assholes. Like, they shit in the pool of open source software. They do not care about open source. Like, they take open source and they do not give back. A good example is their operating system, which is called XNU. I haven't done a lot of work with XNU itself, but this is like the core operating system and kernel that all of Apple's software is built on top of. And they basically forked it. And for a while, they were publishing it under something called Darwin. I think it was called Darwin. Yeah. So they used to have this operating system called Darwin. But eventually they decided to just give up on it. And now they do, I think it's like once every like 6 months or something like that, they'll do like a source dump on it. So any modifications they make to the operating system kernel, they'll publish in the open, but not in a way that's collaborative at all with people from the outside of the company. Like, they don't give a shit about anyone from outside the company. So when I got first time hired as an automations engineer, I uninstalled employee management software on Windows, and HR invited me to the office. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few of those discussions myself. Oh, they were using the crack version. That's not good. Yeah. My policy with any hardware that corporate IT ships me is I just treat it as a device that I don't own. It's not my device. It's the company's device. And they can do whatever they want with it. And everything I do on that device, they own. Yeah, it's theirs, software, hardware, the whole thing. And so when I am working on a company machine, I currently don't work for a company, but when I did work for a company, I would have a specific Wi-Fi that it would connect to where it was totally isolated from everything, and then it would VPN into the corporate network. So it was completely isolated from all of the rest of my stuff, which is the way that I want it. You know, I don't want company stuff mixing. I had a separate company phone when I worked at a company. I feel like that's what you have to do to separate everything. You can't really mix your personal and work devices. I mean, they can like turn on the camera. They can take a photo of you while you're working. Like, it's insane how much spyware they can put on these fucking things. And they 100% have rootkits installed on them. I know that for a fact. All right, let's do a little bit of reading on this. Since I I gave up on reading and I was doing this little test program. Okay, so we go over num threads and we just pthread create our stupid little thread here. And then we go in the main loop, we just loop over, printing out the counter state. And you know what? Let's make it a volatile atomic. I think you call this volatile, and you call this a atomic like that. Is that how you do it? But if I use that, I have to use it. Let's just ask ChatGPT. Hey, what is the syntax in C to read and write from an atomic variable, atomic global variable from multiple threads? It's underscore atomic. I knew it was something weird like that. And they have to say int, counter, or you can say atomic int. I like that better. Atomic int like that. And I need standard atomic. And then in the thread, we can, or in the thing here, we can say atomic load. And then here we can do atomic add, atomic fetch add, fetch add counter 1. And then I'll delete this comment. Address, oh, and I have to pass in the address of it. I don't know why I'm passing in the value. It's kind of silly. There we go. All right, so now it's thread safe. So let's go ahead and build this thing. GCC. What do I do? I'm gonna just do main.c. Why not? A.out. So there we go. We got our 100 threads. If we look here, I'm gonna do in main. I'm just gonna print out the PID before we start up. Printf, we'll say process, we'll just say PID here. %d, new line. And then we say get PID. And then gcc main.c, a.out. So this is our PID. If I can copy it, cat out proc PID, oops, cat out proc, come on, copy the right number here. There we go. Status. And then I'm gonna grep for threads. So you can see we have 1,000 threads plus the main thread. So that's why it says 1001. Reverse IO. So there is upcoming conference regarding malware. This kind of conference, I don't get why this much fees. Yeah, I haven't really gone to any conferences since COVID happened. I think it's useful to go to conferences. If you can't afford the fee, oftentimes they have like what they call scholarships, where people who can't afford to pay for it, because what happens is the reason why a lot of conferences charge a lot for their tickets is because companies pay for them. And so the person who's attending the conference isn't really paying to attend the conference. You know, the company that they work for is paying for them to go to the conference. So they can get away with charging a lot because the companies are paying for them. And so if you don't work for a company, or your company is not willing to send you to the conference, then a lot of these conferences have scholarships available for people who don't have the financial situation where they can pay for it themselves. The other way you can go to conferences, I've found, is to submit proposals for conference talks. So I'll just use like KubeCon CFP. So they have these things called CFP, which is call for proposals. And that's Kelsey Hightower there. But yeah, you can just like submit a talk. Every conference is going to have a different schedule throughout the year. And right now, I guess the CFPs are closed. But, eventually they'll open up for this. And if there's a conference that you're interested in attending, a good way of getting your ticket paid for is to submit a conference talk. And if it gets accepted, they'll pay for your talks, or they'll pay for your ticket. And sometimes they'll even pay for your travel and your room and board. It depends on what type of talk you're giving, though, and how much they really want you to attend. But I've written a lot of talk proposals. I've gotten maybe like a dozen accepted to major conferences. And it's a fun thing to do, but I just don't like giving talks anymore. But that's a good hack to get your stuff paid for. Okay, so we print out your PID. What we're going to do now is we're going to increase this to 10,000. And see, I can't do the underscore. There we go. So we're going to say GCC that and run a.out. And we'll cat out our PID here. So now we just solved the 10,000 concurrency problem. We can just spin up 10,000 threads. Let's see how many we can get away with here before the computer crashes. Vim main.c. Okay. Let's try 100,000. Just do powers. Yeah. GCC. Okay. Data out. That looks like 100,000. Yep. You can see it's going up 100,000 every tick. Let's try 1 million. That'd be pretty crazy if you can get 1 million threads going. There we go. Now we're having problems. Well, it took a little while for them to spin up. I think the reason why I'm able to create so many threads without issue here is because I have 128 gigs of memory. And this is like a memory bound thing. Also, I have 32 cores, so that helps. 32 threads. Okay, so this is where we start having some problems. Okay. The reason why I didn't see any issues reported is because I wasn't checking the exit code or the error code for pthread create. So if I man up pthread create here, you can see it gives back an integer, and I'm just ignoring that. So we'll say error int, and we say if error is equal to -1 probably. I'm gonna have to double check that, but let's say printf, and I'll just put a period. I need to have a semicolon at the end there. And what that'll do is that'll just output a period, and it'll just go into line. So no new lines, because we're gonna have like hundreds of thousands of these things die. All right, return values. On error, it returns an error number, and the contents of thread are undefined. Okay, so down here we're gonna have to say if error is less than 0, because 0 is success. Or we'll say not equal to 0. Okay. So it's GCC that, run a.out. And so for every period, that's a thread that was not able to get created. So you can see a lot of threads failed there. So let's go back to here. We'll bring this back to 100,000, which should work. Yeah, we had no problem with 100,000. So 2,000. Let's do 150,000. 150,000. Okay, I was able to do 150. I didn't expect that. Let's try 200,000. 200,000. There it goes. So somewhere between 150 and 200, it started dying. Let's try 175. 175,000. That was too much. Maybe 162. Oops. Vim main.c. So I get a deal and get dual Xeon machine with around 64 cores. Damn, that's a lot. In around 200 USD. It's Lenovo P700. That's pretty crazy. 64 cores. My workstation that I worked on about 10 years ago had 128 threads, 64 cores and 128 threads. So probably the same type of chip that you're talking about. I had too many. It's too much. Too many cores. The thing I like about this framework is that it has 32 threads, 16 cores, which is sufficient for me. But the other thing I like about it is it's like clock frequency is at 5.1 gigahertz, whereas a lot of these high core count chips, their clock frequencies are like a lot slower, because they're more optimized for parallel workloads than for single-threaded workloads. Let's try 162. Okay, that's a little bit too much. 158. Trying to see how much I can push this before it falls over. I guess 150 is about how many that we can spin up here before we start having issues. So here it says that on success, pthread creates 0. On return, it returns an error number, and the contents of star thread are defined. It doesn't say anything about error no. So I wonder what these error numbers mean. Okay, so the error number is like an error no. So what I'm going to do is go in main.c. Instead of just printfing here, I'm going to say p error out. We'll just say pthread create here, and exits, or we say return here, exits failure. GCC. And I'll need to jack this up to like 175 again. Resource temporarily unavailable. Now, it said nothing about setting error no, so I'm going to set that here. Error no is equal to error. We need to import error no as well. Yeah, so it is resource temporarily unavailable. Try 150 again. Your code main dev in C. What does it say? You code maldev in C ever? I don't know what maldev is. Is this up a? I don't know what this is. What is maldev? Is that like malware development? Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I've never done any malware development. It's interesting. I if I got into malware stuff, it would be reverse engineering for the good of humanity. It wouldn't be for doing bad stuff. Maybe. I have a book that's on the list here, Linux binary, learning Linux binary analysis. That'll be a good one for malware stuff. It's sitting right next to me right now. I'm excited to potentially get around to this, and it's probably going to take me about at least a month or two to get to it, to be honest. Maybe even more, considering the books I have ahead of it. All right, yeah, so this whole thing demonstrates, we'll just report here, main.c. We'll go back to 150. My machine seems to max out around 150k threads. So what this program demonstrates, and I'll even say it up here, this program demonstrates that a single machine can create upwards of hundreds of thousands of threads given the amount of memory and CPU cores available on modern machines, especially servers. The C10K problem is easily solved with threads. However, they still are not efficient. An efficient solution. Bam. Cool. Oh, a VDSO? What is that? Oh, I need to remove a.out. Get LGA. Do I have commits here? I'm gonna leave that. Git status, git restore staged VDSO. We'll just say here, add test program to see how many threads I can spawn. So the next book that I'm reading, the one that I'm currently reading, is this KNR C. So this book, it might even be in your repo that you shared with me. I don't know if I have the link to that. I did bookmark it, I think. No, I didn't. But that link that you sent me with it was like Git repo with all the PDFs in it. I think that has this book in it. It's a pretty infamous book. And it's basically like a tutorial and introduction to like the C programming language. And I read about half of it when I was much younger. And I just never finished it. And the book has a lot of exercises. That's the other thing I like about it, is that It has a lot of exercises. Actually, here it is. It's just right here. You just go to Wikipedia. You don't have to pirate it. So if you go, I'm just going to go to the index here. Do they have an index? Yeah, here you go. Like they have a lot of exercises throughout the book. It's not even at the end of the chapters. Like throughout the chapter, each section has exercises. Some of them are rather trivial, like things that you could just solve with like an LLM pretty easily. But some of them, I was looking at some of the later ones. I was like, oh, it'd be kind of nice to like play around with some of this stuff. So I figured what I'll do is I'll read the book, and then as I find exercises that I think might be fun to do on stream, I'll just like highlight them, and then when I'm streaming, I'll just go in and implement all the exercises. Cool. Yeah, it's just C, and it's a really old book, but it's like one of those books that like everyone who's worth their salt has read. It's the authors are Brian Kernighan and Dennis Ritchie. So Dennis Ritchie is one of the primary creators of the Unix operating system, and the C programming language, obviously. Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie were the two primary people who created Unix. So, yeah, it's an approachable book. It's short. It's only like a couple hundred pages. It's free. As you can see, it's freely available. Just go to Wikipedia. You can find the PDF link here. It's only like a couple hundred pages. So, I mean, if you actually wanted to learn C, you could go through this and learn C pretty effectively. A lot of this stuff is stuff that I already know. It's going to be a lot of review for me, so I'm going to try to go as fast as possible through this. But yeah, I think it'd be a fun thing to get completed because, like I said, I only read like half of it when I was younger, and I never finished it. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I just want to finish it. How dedicated and insane one have to be to just invent a revolution? Yeah. These guys were like nerds. Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson. They're a bunch of nerds. They like computers. I feel like I'm getting that way in my life now. It's like the first part of my life. Of course, I was interested in computers, but a large chunk of the first part of my life, like I hit midlife right now. I'm going through a bit of a midlife crisis. But the first half of my life, I felt was like my interest in computers were also mixed with interests outside of computers. You know, like all the things that people were interested in. And so I didn't really like spend all of my time doing like computer research. But now that I'm getting older, I have nothing but free time, and I love being able to spend my time learning more about computers. It's a luxury. I'm happy that I'm blessed to be able to spend this time being able to do this. So yeah, I look forward to being like an old gray beard dude hacking on stuff when I'm like 80. I'm going to be one of the dedicated insane people that starts a revolution. Look at these dudes. Nice sweater. Man, that's a bunch of nerds right there. He's got my my hairline. Cool. All All right, yeah, it's getting kind of late for me, so I'm gonna hop off here. But yeah, tomorrow, I think I don't have anything going on tomorrow, so I think I'm gonna do some fun streams tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow morning I'll be on, just probably hacking on my ePoll server, and then maybe doing some reading on the KNRC book. Hey, how's it going, buddy? I got a new viewer. What's up, man? Yeah, I just getting ready to hop off here. But if you want to drop me a subscription or a follow on Twitch, appreciate it. I stream pretty regularly. Nerdnath and I have been chatting for the past couple weeks now, hacking on different stuff. I'm working on an ePoll server. We were talking about the C10K problem today. So yeah, if you want to follow, catch me some other time. I'll be on tomorrow. I'll probably do maybe 2 or 3 streams tomorrow. Yeah, I'm gonna hop off here because I'm getting tired and it's late. Yeah, and there's a Discord too. If you want to hop on there, we chat on the Discord. I don't have the Bang Discord macro working yet, but if you go to the what is it? If you go to the Twitch main page, there's like a section of links, and I linked the Discord in that link. So if you want to join up there, it's a small group. You know, I just got started streaming here about a month ago, so we just chat about stuff there. Cool. All right, I'm gonna hop off here. Have a good night, y'all. Later.